For the longest time, I genuinely believed that motivation was the one thing missing from my life. Not skill, not time, not opportunity, just motivation. I thought that if I could somehow feel more inspired, more locked in, more mentally ready, then everything would finally start moving. I thought one day I'd wake up and something inside me would just click. Like I'd suddenly become the kind of person who does what he says he's going to do. The kind of person who wakes up early, who trains hard, who works with focus, who stops wasting time, who finally becomes the version of himself keeps imagining in his head. And honestly, I waited for that version of me for a very long time. But that day never came. That switch never flipped. And for a while, I started thinking maybe something was just wrong with me. Maybe I was lazy. Maybe I lacked discipline. Maybe I just wasn't built like the people who actually changed their lives. Because from the outside, it looked like I cared. And to be fair, I did care. A lot. I watched the motivational videos. I saved the quotes. I listened to the podcasts. I consumed all the right advice. And every few days, I'd feel it again. That little emotional spike. That sudden burst of energy that makes you sit up straighter and think, okay, this is it. This time I'm serious. This time I'm actually changing, and for a few hours, sometimes even a whole night, I believed it. I'd open my notes app, write down a fresh plan, new goals, new habits, new routines, new promises. I'd map out this whole new life like I had finally figured it out. And in those moments, it felt incredible, because for a little while, I didn't feel behind anymore. I didn't feel weak. I didn't feel lost. I felt like I was finally becoming someone. Like I had finally found the beginning of my comeback story. And that feeling, if you know, you know. It's addictive, because it gives you the emotional experience of progress, without requiring the discomfort of actual change. And that's where the trap begins. Because eventually, the next morning always came. And when it did, nothing had actually changed. I'd wake up tired. My room looked the same. My habits were the same. My mind was the same. And before I even fully set up, my hand would already be reaching for my phone. Just automatically. Like I wasn't even choosing anymore. And then the excuses would start. I begin in an hour. I just need to wake up first. I'll start after I eat. I'll start later. I'll start tomorrow. I'll start Monday. And somehow, that version of me who felt unstoppable at 11:47 p.m. the night before was completely gone by 9:13 a.m. And before I knew it, I was back in the same place again. Same distractions, same delays, same unfinished plans, same disappointment, just a different version of the same lie. I'll change when I feel ready. And that lie is dangerous, because the longer you believe it, the longer you stay stuck waiting for a feeling that was never designated to carry your life. And this is the part people don't talk about enough. That cycle doesn't just waste time. It changes the way I'll see yourself. At first, it just feels like procrastination. Then it feels like frustration. Then guilt. Then shame. And after a while, it becomes something heavier than that. You stop trusting your own word. You tell yourself you were going to do something, but deep down, a part of you already knows you probably won't. That is a brutal feeling, because once you stop believing yourself, everything gets heavier. Getting out of bed gets heavier. Starting work gets heavier. Training gets heavier. Trying again gets heavier. Not because those things are impossible, but because your brain has already seen this movie before. It has heard the promises. It has felt the hype. It has watched you restart and quit, restart and quit, again and again and again. And eventually, you stop feeling like someone who's trying to improve and start feeling like someone who just keeps failing in private. And that is where a lot of people lose years of their life. Not because they're stupid, not because they're weak, not even because they don't want better, but because they are trapped inside a loop that feels productive while changing absolutely nothing. And the thing that changed everything for me was finally realizing this. Motivation was never the answer. That was the lie I had built everything around. I kept treating motivation like it was the engine, like if I could just find enough of it, hold onto it, protect it, then I'd finally become consistent. But motivation was never the engine. It was just the spark. And a spark means nothing if there's nothing solid built behind it. That was the moment everything started making sense. My real problem was never a lack of desire. I wanted to change. I wanted better. I wanted more from myself. That was never the issue. The real issue was this. I had no structure, no standards, no system strong enough to carry me on the days I felt absolutely nothing. And those are the days that decide your future. Not the exciting ones, not the new beginning nights, not the random motivational surges. Your future gets built in the ordinary moments. The boring mornings, the low-energy afternoons, the nights where no one is watching, the moments where your brain wants the easy escape. That's where your life is shaped. Not by emotion, by repetition, by what you do when you don't feel like doing anything at all. And that realization changed the question I started asking myself. I stopped asking, how do I stay motivated? And I started asking, how do I become someone who can still move without needing motivation at all? And that question changed everything. So if you're stuck in that same cycle, here's what actually started helping me. Not perfectly, not instantly, and definitely not overnight, but for real. The first thing I changed was I stopped waiting to feel ready. That sounds simple, but it changes everything. Because if you keep waiting for the perfect mental state, you will wait forever. Most of life is not lived in the perfect mood. It's lived in messy, inconvenient, ordinary moments. When you're tired, when you're distracted, when your energy is low, when you'd rather do anything else. That's real life. And if you can only move when everything feels aligned, you will barely move at all. The second thing I changed was making a few things non-negotiable. Not a huge fake routine needed to make me feel productive. Not some 18-step morning recited abandoned in 3 days. Just a few things that had to happen whether I felt like it or not. Wake up, train, do at least one important thing. Stay off my phone in the morning. Simple, but powerful. Because every time I'll keep a promise to yourself, you rebuild trust. And self-trust is worth more than motivation will ever be. The third thing I changed was reducing the things that were making discipline harder. And this part is huge. Because sometimes you do not have a motivation problem. You have a dopamine problem. Your brain is so used to fast, easy stimulation that real effort starts to feel unbearable. Scrolling, constant content, quick pleasure, instant distraction, always escaping discomfort the second it appears. That stuff rewires you. It trains your brain to avoid depth. So when it's finally to sit down and work, or train, or think, or build something meaningful, your mind resists it. Not because you're broken, but because you trained it to chase easier rewards. And the last shift was probably the most important one of all. I learned to act without emotion, without waiting for hype, without needing to feel inspired, without needing the mood to be perfect. I learned to move even when the feeling wasn't there. And that is the real difference between people who stay stuck and people who actually change. Because once you can move without excitement, without validation, without emotional permission, you become Dan Girusto, your old self. That's when change becomes real, not emotional change, behavioral change. And that is the only kind that actually lasts. So no, motivation was never going to save me. And honestly, it's probably not going to save you either. Because the version of you that you want to become will not be built on temporary feelings. It will be built on standards, on repetition, on keeping your word when no one is there to clap for you. And I know that's not the sexy answer. It's not dramatic. It's not cinematic. It's not the answer most people want to hear. But it's real. And real is what changes your life. So if you've been sitting around waiting to finally feel different, stop waiting. You do not need more motivation. You need a system that still works when your emotions don't. And the moment you stop depending on feelings and start building standards, that's the moment your life actually begins to change.